Hi everyone.
Hello. Hello.
Okay.
Hello. Hello. I'll wait for some more people to join. Let me find the agenda. Okay, was in the wrong place. I think we have enough folks to get started. It's 5 past. Missing some people from our side. Anyway. All right. I think for the sake of everyone in the recording, let's get started. As usual, housekeeping notice. There is an antitrust policy for Linux Foundation. Go read it if you don't know what it is or not. The meeting is recorded. If you have questions, just raise your hand in Zoom. But otherwise, I think we're all civil here and we can figure it out. So for the general announcements, the only thing I put on the agenda is discussion about the logo that I'm being asked to bring up here. For those that haven't seen it, if you can check out in the agenda notes that I shared in chat, there is a design tweak to the Besu logo, which basically just changes the Hyperledger font from the previous font to the new stylized font, which is a little bit thinner. Does anyone have any feedback on this change that would like to be officially recorded and passed to Hyperledger marketing, or just general feedback? Otherwise, I personally don't have much of an opinion, as it's pretty much just a font change. I can also share my screen if that's something that is interesting. This is the logo. All right, no comment. I think silence is golden, I guess.
Yeah, silence equals assent.
This is, yeah, I don't think anyone's going to care too much. The B is a little bit thinner. The E is a little bit thinner. The S and the U are a little bit thinner. It's basically just slimmed down. Maybe this is, we've, working on storage improvements in Bonsai. Everything's getting more lightweight. All right, that's my joke for the day. I guess we're moving on. Silence is golden. Noted. Okay. I bet this was discussed last time on the Australian call, but there is a change to the docs to Docusaurus, which was a new tool for blah, blah, blah. I think we're just basically bringing this in line with a lot of the other documentation and streamlining it on the consensus DocOps side. So there is a new process to change this. I don't think anyone here really is going to be triggering any docs releases, but that's just how it is. There's also a reminder that if you have a PR that requires a docs change, please use the docs change required label in GitHub. So opening a new PR that will update configuration options or modify behaviors or change something generally that's needed in the docs, please make sure to either add a doc change needed label to the PR as you complete it, or open a PR in the documentation repo yourself, which is pretty straightforward. And then folks on the DocOps team at Consensus will clean up the PRs and handle them for you. Cool.
One thing there, Matt, I think, historically, doing a docs release has been part of doing a Besu release. Or did we change that so that the release manager for whoever's doing the Besu release is not responsible for doing a docs release?
No, but I think it's just, instead of releasing on GitHub, we need to open a PR probably at the same time, because Docusaurus, from what I've gathered, Docusaurus doesn't handle these gracefully. Let me check this actual link here. Yeah, I mean, it just seems like you have to have your changes committed as a PR instead of pushing them release manually to the repo, Gary.
Okay.
Is this cataloged in the actual Besu release? Where's the release page? Here we go. Ooh.
Would not surprise me if the release process doesn't have the new Docusaurus stuff in it yet.
Where is the new one that we have with the RCs that is also the next topic of discussion? Have we logged that anywhere?
No, that the RC proposal was really just about Besu itself, not docs
No.
or homebrew.
But do we have like a page outlining? Hang on, let me just go back. Reprieve, okay.
Yeah.
I think we just need to add this.
It's hard to tell
Okay.
with the breadcrumbs up there, but I think this is under proposals.
Developing and conventions, releasing, it's right here.
Okay.
Well, this is a good little segue. Hang on, I need another window. So hang on. I know this is a lot of information. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so the next topic is this was a trial of this release behavior. Gary, do you want to give some updates on how it's been going? And maybe we can just talk it over with the group so that we can move it to potentially be an official release process.
Yep. So I think that this process has some really nice features in that there's no blocking of main. There's no like, please don't do anything while we're trying to do this release. That doesn't occur because we're using a release branch. There's also reasonable provenance for what gets produced from the release branch by merging of this squashed commits in main. So we've got a good provable trail of what went into the release. So that, I think those are the really the nice characteristics of it. Some of the kind of the bad technical characteristics that we've discovered is that whenever we do those, whenever we end up cherry picking or merging main into the release branch, we end up with different SHAs. So we have to end up doing cherry picks instead of just it just makes the process somewhat more fraught. There's a little bit of git foo that has to happen for that to occur. And then each time we do a new release branch, like currently we have a quarterly release branch. It's release-23.7.x. Every time we would want to do that for a new quarter, we would have to have somebody with admin privileges come in and disable the branch protection rules to create a new release branch. So that's not optimal. We don't want to have to require admin privileges for that. Really, those are the pain points at the moment. I think this is somewhat reasonable to script this to make it low friction and low pain. The human required part of this process so far, as Simon pointed out on the last release, is identifying which SHA we need to start the cherry pick commit from. So I think what we need to do is just kind of iterate on this process a bit and see how well we can automate it. Because I think that if we don't want to do a tag based release, I think that this is the next best option. It just, we need to do a bit more work on the actual release process itself. So I think for the 2310 release branch, we should probably take this less as a trial and more into the automation realm. So I think we could at least start iterating on the scripts that would automate the release. So far this cycle, I think only Simon and myself have used this release process. So if anybody's got feedback about better options or problems that they think that this release process have that we haven't discovered already, totally open to feedback on it. This is just what we discovered this quarter doing releases with this process.
I think it's also good to include it. I think it's also good to include that it was really easy to abort the release candidates that fail. It doesn't.
It's a great point. It didn't mess with Docker at all because of the way we're working this process. We don't end up pre-publishing Docker images for our burn-in candidates.
I would
And
like
users
to
pick up.
do. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, sorry.
Just want to say that I would like to try this new approach and see how it goes.
Awesome.
Don't know if we talk about this later. Are we going with the next release with a quarterly, or are we releasing .4?
I think we have Amazian on the call to give updates.
Yes, I can give an update, but my update is not related to the quarter release or the .4. This is right.
Does anyone have comments on this before we switch topics to the next agenda item, which is the kind of a debrief on the release candidate for 2373?
I can pair with you, Fabio, on this, whether it's the 2310 or if it's a 237, then we can just run with it. Or if you want to automate the 2310, automate this process for 2310, that would be awesome as well.
Is it possible to record if you are appearing like that? We can see the new process.
Yep, definitely.
Thanks.
Yeah, available.
Okay, sounds good.
Anything else from anyone on the call here?
Yeah, I can share about the memory usage investigation. So if I can share my screen, Matt, please. Okay, so we noticed at the end of the burn-in period on 23.7.3-RC that the newest version, like this one, consumes more memory because it gets killed by the OM killer. After some hours, which was not the case with 23.7.2. So we run most of our tests on 16 gigabyte machines, and we have different CLs, consensus layers. I'm talking about the mainnet, like Ethereum mainnet staking use case. So on a 16 gigabyte, we noticed some overhead in terms of memory usage. So what I did here, I shared the investigation. The idea was to find which part of the the memory of the RAM was used more in the last release. So I have this formula, which is the Java process memory usage, which is the sum of the committed heap, the committed of non-heap, the number of threads times XSS, which is by default. So this is the stack space, which is by default 1 megabyte on 64 GVM. And then we have the native allocations that are most of the case in Piso related to RocksDB. So I checked like every each part here, and what I found was related to the committed heap. So I started by just by recalling the baseline of memory usage on 23.7.1, 23.4.4. We have also new GC flags. So these new GC flags makes Bizu use less memory. So these are 3 GC flags, and they are enabled by default on 23.7.3-RC, and they are not enabled before. You have to set them by yourself, but they weren't by default. but just to have like the same kind of setup, I enable GC flags on different releases to have the same, and it helps, as you can see, it helps to use less memory, and this way we can also compare with 23.7.3-RC. Yeah, so checking then the heap, I did some heap dumps, comparing the heap dumps. I found that it seems to be related to the memory pool or the transaction pool. And then we did some work with Fabio to find a way to reduce memory usage in the transaction pool. So Fabio suggested to lower the number, like the default numbers we have currently, but by 1/4, if I recall correctly. To use less.
To 1/4, to 1/4. So 25% of the current.
Okay. And yeah, that's it for me. Yeah.
Awesome. So I think that the net of what we're going to be doing with this release is that we'll look to tweak those settings, Fabio, and potentially re-release on the same, with like basically only cherry picking some fixes in or some changes into those defaults.
Okay. Do you think so? Without releasing from main the .4, because
We could. There's a lot of change between now and then in main, which is probably fine, but we'd have to do it's.
so if this is not urgent to release .4, I don't know if there is any outstanding PR that needs to be released as soon as possible. Could be an option to jump to 23.10 RC. What do you think?
Yeah, I just know that Dano had mentioned some changes he wanted in Besu native for the latest release that I don't think we should block at all. Whether we go straight to .10 is another thing that's up for debate, basically, with how we use the quarterlies.
Quick question. If this is largely a explainable and not dramatic increase in heap or off heap memory usage, could we just not release 23.7.3 as is with a note about the increased memory usage, and then we can release 23.7.4 with as a final for the 23.7 series with the GC flags, or not GC flags, with the transaction pool configuration options?
We already
Yes,
have
because it's not-
.3 out. We already have .3 out. So we need
Oh,
to
I'm
do
sorry. I thought we
.4.
I thought we still had 23.7.3 RC. I didn't realize we'd released .3 as is.
it's just the Holsky network config fixes.
Okay.
We needed a new Holsky.
Yeah, I'm fine adding. I think since it's just a default configuration change, we can add just this PR on top of the RC, and so reduce the amount of memory and be safer. Then, since we have more time to collect metric about the improvement we are doing in the transaction pool and other stuff, we can tune it again in the RC, in the 10 RC if we need. But I think it's safer to just cherry pick this single PR that changed the defaults on top of what we have.
Yeah, I think that we should try to keep the last point release in the series really stable and not not add a huge change log. And then we can, like I said, we already have a relatively large change log going into 23.10
Mhm.
that can be released shortly thereafter.
Okay.
We
Okay,
can we
makes
can even
sense.
do it concurrently, considering the precedent right now is that we have a release branch for each quarter. So we don't have to hold 2310 for 23.7 or vice versa.
Yeah. Maybe we can take a look at the change log and decide if it warrants that based on what's in the new PRs between 7.4 and now, basically. We'd also have to diff the change log between 23.7.3 and 23.7.2, and because it's all the changes that were initially slated for 23.7.3 and did not make it in. So we can just look at this change log right now, actually. Yeah, so this is the big one, right? The layered transaction pool by default. Maybe we do just put this as the quarterly because that's it's a breaking change that is changing a default behavior and that consumes more memory. So that sounds like something that would be reasonable to put in the quarterly. This is included as well. This is fine. This doesn't include everything that's been done since. No, this is in main now. Well, some of these don't have change logs, for example. No, am I? Here we go. Wait 1 second. Where did this go? Here we go. Okay. I mean, what do people think? Right? We have enough of a quorum on this call.
Yeah, I think a .4 with just a or actually if 23.7.3 was just Holsky, I don't see any reason to continue to iterate on 23.7. We can just go with 23.10
That's what
RC.
I'm saying. You know, and this is a very stable release. We haven't had very many issues besides maybe some of the sync challenges, but should we target those for 23.10 and start burning at the end of the week?
I think that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, to
Yeah, I
me
like-
also just if you say Dano needs something to release in .4, we can cherry pick that change only to release in .4.
We can ask him. I don't know if it was urgent that it can't wait until a week from today. But if not, then that would be also very reasonable. It's just to do the cherry pick on top of 23.7.3 and include just the Besu native changes and the things that he was looking for, because we did delay that release almost 2 weeks. So it's worth asking Dano. If not, we can. So how about this? This is a plan, right? We'll follow up in Discord with Dano on the timeline for what he needs. If the answer is soon, we'll just push. If the answer can wait 1 week until next Wednesday, we wrap up and lock the release for 23.10 by Friday for burn in over the weekend for release on Wednesday. Does it sound like a plan?
Yep, sounds great.
All right, let me edit the notes to reflect that. Plan to Yeah, Gary, I really think we should try to get the RocksDB lock retry in this one. If not in, like, depending on what we have to do, but we should try to get that one out, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, we've got, if we want to cut it Wednesday, we've still got time.
Cool. All right, Matt Whitehead, did you just get to discuss this on the Australia call? I think it was on the previous agenda.
Hey, yeah. I think so. No, I didn't join the Australia call. I joined this call last time round, and I opened it just to sort of air sort of the its existence, I guess, primarily, and just to sort of go briefly over what the intention of the document was. So no, it was more just a couple of minutes at the end of the last call, really.
Gotcha. I know we have discussed this before.
Yeah, and the last few bullets towards the bottom of the document, I guess for people who haven't sort of seen this yet, are some of the suggested outcomes of this document. So kind of everything above is probably more useful sort of offline reading. But you and I, Matt, discussed some of the things that might come out of it. And the background for others on the call, I guess, is that I work for Kaleido, which is a commercial organization that offers support for running Besu in enterprise scenarios, primarily permission chain sort of scenarios. And so this was a sort of a working document that I started talking through with Matt a couple of months ago about how to make it easier, I guess, for organizations like ourselves to sort of consume and package and offer Besu in a way that's sort of easier for us to give Besu end users some confidence around some bits and pieces. And one of the first possible outcome in that list is around the amount of permission testing that's done per release versus the amount of testing that's done sort of in mainnet syncing style, which is, I think, predominantly what's done today.
Gotcha. So since Consensus is primarily the group that does this burn-in testing, what we should suggest is something like I could see this going multiple ways, right? When we cut those release images and the RCs and the previous section we just discussed,
yeah,
those images are socialized on, the contributor or the release channel or the contributor channel.
Yeah.
And that socialization will trigger whatever process external parties want to do too. So like I said, there could be two ways I see this. Some group cuts the release. That release is then shared and then tested on infrastructure hosted by whomever. So if Kaleido wants to test all the configurations of QBFT or IBFT2,
yeah,
you can do whatever sync you want, et cetera, et cetera. And that also gives a forum for anybody to basically say, we have a regression or identified issue that can pause the release process.
Yeah.
So that's one way. The second way that I could see is that Consensus is provided a means to do this same testing with low friction. So whether it's kind of automation or infrastructure as code or something that we can use to not burden ourselves duly, but at the same time, Consensus takes the bulk of these kind of CI funds and things from the maintainer program, et cetera. So like we could potentially run that infrastructure and just do it as part of our normal burn-in. I'm preferable to option one just because it'll give private folks or private network developers more control over the kinds of tests that you want to see and more ability to do metrics gathering without having to bother accessing our systems or doing anything that would, require agreements and weirdness.
Yeah. I think, I think both those are sort of valid approaches. And I can see that the first one, it does make it a bit easier for a third party to run some tests and delve into results and logs and things a bit more easily without having to, like you say, have access to your systems. So yeah, and I wonder if that's where this starts, is sort of trying to come up with a sort of a repeatable way of doing that when release candidates are cut. and maybe documenting in the wiki or something, how that process works, and if other people want to follow that to do their own sorts of testing, which aren't, which are maybe they have a different priority to our organization, then maybe we do that over some of the coming releases, and just see how that sort of process pans out in reality.
So this is where I think some people will have the most issue, or what is an agreement or a consensus on an issue that can pause the release. If we use the recent example, a gigabyte memory usage / kind of kill issues was enough to pause a release. So that's like one thing. It's like a genuine performance regression. There is also the very straightforward thing of like, okay, we broke QBFT, like block, right? This is probably where we need the most consensus among maintainers. But I think maybe a trial is the best, and then we can say like we keep just going through it and we reach a social consensus as we go forward. Or Gary or some of the other folks on our side, what do you think this would look like? Because I think we should have been doing this anyway, right? Where we have a release candidate that's cut and we let everybody who's a maintainer, a contributor who wants to test bring to the table potential issues instead of just consensus.
You mean in a different, more formalized process other than like on the Besu release channel? Like I think that's right now where we've been doing these types of conversations about what we consider blockers or.
No, so what I'm suggesting is like we essentially, maybe we already are doing this. It's just that the fact of the matter is that no one else is deciding to do the burn-in testing. I guess what I'm trying to say,
yeah.
Like, hey, so instead of having to formalize something now, we can start iteratively and be like, okay, we have now that we are approaching a process of release that is based entirely around release candidates. Another added bonus of that is that we can socialize these release candidates for more broad testing before we go to a finalized point release, which means that more people can bring to the table potential bugs, issues, and regressions, as opposed to just consensus saying, oh, we've cut this release and we're already burn-in testing it. Now we have a release candidate that everybody can poke at, and we can reach social consensus around whether we need to pause the release, is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Basically, rather than just saying, hey, we started a burn-in, maybe more socialize the release candidate process itself, the burn-in candidate process itself.
Yeah, and also I guess it's a bit like opening a window for other parties to do their own testing, because that window is not going to be forever. There's going to be sort of it's going to be time bounded as to how long the release process wants to hold out for someone else to do some testing. So maybe just some sort of formalizing that a little more, or structuring it a little more just in Discord around you've got 2 weeks to do some testing, or that kind of thing. The window for testing is going to close at a given point, and that kind of thing maybe.
Gotcha. So let me give you the lowdown on like maybe it makes sense. So for this release, like we said, we're going to talk to basically Dano and see what is a must-have in the timeline for his, because he had mentioned must-have PRs that need to be shipped. So if we have a little bit of extra time to work on 23.10, what I would suggest is maybe that for this testing or for your own kind of burn-in testing, at least Kaleido in this instance, it could be anybody, you can prepare for internal burn-in so that when we cut a release next Friday, or excuse me, either this Friday or the following Friday or whatever, that you'll be ready to kind of conduct some kind of burn-in testing of release candidate. And that way we'll get the data that we need, because otherwise we're just willing things into existence, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think so we're going to have a bit of work to do our side just to decide what that kind of testing is going to look like. And my guess is probably for this release, it's you know, I don't think it's something we're going to have time to do for this particular release, but it's sort of, I think it focuses our mind on getting a sort of a test set up that we're happy with, that we can more easily run and rerun on future release candidates. So I think that kind of puts the ball in our court a bit, I think.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I'm not going to, we have a lot of this infrastructure in place. We can also share kind of what we do. It's mostly just syncing from scratch and then gathering metrics around execution performance, memory usage, you know, various kind of things. We don't do a ton of testing around RPC, which is that we should be doing because we occasionally catch RPC regressions. And maybe this is something that we can do more in the public kind of view. It's like, how do we have a test suite against RPC? Yada, yada, yada. I think that's our kind of.
And I do wonder, because I think there's a whole bunch of permission testing that happens per PR in, I think, the acceptance tests. There are IBFT, QBFT acceptance tests. So on a per PR, sort of per merge basis, obviously there's testing going on in this space, and I wonder if there's like if there's potential for just like to start with just slightly longer variants, you know, just through configuration almost of some of those tests that aren't run per PR, per merge, but could potentially be sort of extended to run just for a longer period of time. It needn't necessarily be initially like gathering all of the diagnostics that might be gathered today for a burn-in, but it might just be enough to say, you know, for a given end user, that release had, you know, a day's worth of QBFT run on it, maybe not 5 days, and maybe we didn't like go into huge amounts of detail about and, you know, memory usage changes, performance changes, but we did at least run a chain and it mined, you know, 1 million blocks at 2 seconds a block or something for a day. So I wonder if there's just a sort of a gentle steer towards a small amount of automated, really low friction testing per release that's a bit more than those that are run on a PR, but you know, not as much as the current burn-in process that the consensus team goes through.
Cool. Gary?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to clarify, because I had this expectation really that I thought we were going to build, if not it sounds like we're having a conformed enterprise release process as well as like main release process. But for some reason, I thought that we were talking about doing, you know, a separate distribution that was enterprise Besu that would include like some of the things that we're trying to plug in a fire modularize. Do we think that, have we abandoned that process? Are we still considering that process? And if we're still considering it, is what we're discussing here like commensurate with that strategy? Like, do we have? Yeah, I'll leave it there and just get some clarity on the enterprise release proposal.
I mean, in my mind, it's iterative, right? Why not have better enterprise releases now while we focus on the modularity work that is back? Our team has 0 bandwidth to work on, right?
Yeah.
This is way less friction and potentially high value. Whereas once we get there, that's a lot more work, but also high value. So we're just not ready to reach that point yet. So I don't see, but I see this as an.
So this is like a stepping stone towards that direction. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we were still considering doing like distribution, like use case specific distributions that were not, you know, like monolithic releases.
Yeah, I think this is the reality of where we are, and then this is where we're trying to go, right?
Matthew, is that your understanding as well? That
yeah, absolutely. So as I was sort of putting the notes together in that document and talking to Matt on calls, I think enterprise releases of Besu that a commercial offering or a customer or, you know, a user can consume, and sort of it's a little more focused on enterprise use cases perhaps, and It has some of the testing that we've talked about that would give someone, sort of all those parties, sort of a bit more confidence in what that release contains and how well it's been exercised. Some of those sort of thoughts are in that document that's sort of, you know, totally open for people to comment on around, you know, what goes into particular releases, and you know, when are breaking changes sort of allowed into release and when aren't they, and some of those sorts of things. I think that is quite a long journey, but you know, from my experience, it's continuing this discussion over the coming months and chipping away at areas that sort of move us towards it, I guess.
Okay, great.
Awesome. All right, so to reiterate a little bit, Matt, let us know if the team work, like, I think it's a matter of like, we will be better about kind of saying, hey, here's the releases, test how you will. And if needs advice on how this goes about, or if you have specific questions about the acceptance tests and things, Sally and Jason, who are based in Australia, are great resources to talk to. I know you've talked to them before, but they have a lot of visibility into the permissioning testing and the QBFT and IBFT testing. So that'd be a good place to go as well.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I might sort of start a side discussion with them on Discord around that area of things as well.
Yeah, and if you come up with anything where it's like, okay, maybe we run a little bit of additional testing that looks like this on the release candidates, I'm sure our team would be more than happy to add that to our build process when we go through those candidates.
Okay, yeah, that's another thing I'll look at, is how easy it would be to run some of the existing stuff, but in a slightly different way with minimal effort for all involved.
Yeah, and frankly, to be honest with you, we don't do things like test necessarily Docker and Kubernetes as detailed as we should, which will also impact enterprise users much more than mainnet users for the most part. Not always true, but, you know, like thinking through, you know, Docker stuff, thinking through some of these other environments that will be more common for enterprise use case, but not necessarily for mainnet, would also be like good to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think most people we are working with are pretty heavily into Kubernetes space, and certainly conversations I've had have been sort of down into the detail of how the peering it works in that world, when you're behind load balancers and service node ports and ingresses and things. So certainly that's an area that I think could be exercised more. But again, it's just the balance of how easy that is to include in some of this release testing.
Awesome.
Is there any like movement or interested parties that are like Kaleido, Web3 Labs, or whatever, that are contemplating or actively working on like doing Besu distributions?
So I think I could probably speak for Kaleido to say that we offer support and are looking at distributions of Besu for our users. Yeah.
That's great. Those will be interesting conversations.
Yeah. So one sort of one decision point for us is when which Besu release is a good one for us to then move our users up to. That's something that we're talking about internally, is how we know when a given Besu release is a good candidate for enterprise users. Is it mainly got features that are to do with mainnet? Has it got breaking changes that would affect users? That again is sort of part of our internal process. And again, that I think leads to some of this discussion around, well, how would it be a bit easier to for us to know when a release is useful for us to spend some time doing burning testing and has features that are more likely to be relevant to enterprise users. So that those are some of the discussions we're having internally.
Also, a lot of fixes we are doing now, it's related to Bonsai. Is someone working on some Banzai private network compatibility, or is it still in the backlog?
Yeah, similarly, the sync issues for private networks, I imagine, would be for if and when Banzai becomes the default storage mechanism. This will highlight a lot of things that private networks or enterprise networks will need to have solutions for, I think.
Yeah, I raised this briefly in the Discord discussion about moving the default to SnapSync and Banzai, which I think was the sort of the summary of the proposal. And yeah, those are areas that enterprise users, I think, pay close attention to. They want to know what data they have and how far back it goes and how accessible it is. And those, yeah, the relationships between the different node types, the different sync types, the different storage types are very sort of very common discussions to have. And so for us, I think we need to have clear answers for those sort of users around what combinations are going to give them what data availability, going back to historical data. And I think in some cases that's probably more important than performance for some enterprise use cases.
Yeah, I think that the Banzai archive work that is unfortunately on our back burner right now, once we complete that, I think we can have a more complete discussion around these, because we're implementing SnapSync server in the client now, but it'll only be compatible with Banzai out of the box. So SnapSync will be limited on private networks that are not running Banzai. Or, for example, you could have one Banzai node. Well, maybe I'm wrong, Gary, here, but will we be able to serve traffic to Forest nodes from a Banzai node?
You can sync a Forest node with a SnapSync server node. Today
Yeah, so
we are
But we
you'll need
wouldn't serve fast sync data. We wouldn't serve fast sync. We would serve SnapSync, and
yeah,
there would have to be some,
but Forest can use SnapSync, so it will not be a problem.
right.
Okay, so I think, yeah, I think we should definitely revisit this discussion. I have also thoroughly, I think we need to table the defaults until at least the beginning of next year. The changes, that is. I wanted to bring it up well in advance because I think there's a lot of considerations to be made around default switches. Because, yeah, so we need to do more investigation. We also need to finish Snap Server, finish Banzai Archive, and ship them both. And then I think we can have a discussion around defaults that involves Snap and Banzai in a meaningful way. Because I think the only thing really holding back those private networks would be Banzai related archive. Because having a Forest, you can still use a weird combination of nodes, but it would be better to have everything running Banzai, and then you have the ability to not have to stress too much about it and use SnapSync out of the box or full sync and be okay.
Yeah, I think if there's a nice clean answer, which is SnapSync and Banzai, the recommendations, those are the ones to use, and here's your answer to the how is more archive-like data made available to you. I think that's fine. And I think without it, it feels like that users are going to feel like there's a piece of the jigsaw sort of missing for them. And on the defaults front, I was kind of thinking along similar lines around, well, whether or not defaults have to apply to all sort of consensus types. It becomes complicated if you have different defaults for different consensus types, but at the same time, if there are gaps in what's available for, say, a KeyBFT network, I wondered if that had been considered as a different set of defaults for different types of chain.
Yeah, I think the problem is plumbing primarily.
Yeah.
And also and user confusion.
Yeah.
There's also the notion that I don't know if I want to open this can of worms right now, but Forest will longer term be incompatible with Verkle tries
from the work that we're doing. So as mainnet diverges more and more from kind of the private network setups, features in Besu will basically not be maintained for kind of this old format. So a perfect world, right? We're working on making Bonsai more performant, more storage efficient. And once we have the archive mode ready, it'll solve the two primary use cases of nodes in a private network. So like the discussion should more so be around how do we get folks onto Bonsai and private networks, do all of the making sure they're getting the performance benefits, the storage benefits, they're getting longer term support from us as maintainers, right? And then, you know, what do we do with Forest? If it becomes incompatible with mainnet, do we still need it around if it works in private networks, if we have Bonsai, et cetera, right? Like getting rid of fast sync, getting rid of all this old kind of vestigial stuff as we move forward. I'm opening a can of worms for something that's a 2024 problem, but like, I just wanted to kind of tee up that discussion.
Yeah, understood. I totally in favor of moving everyone to the right place rather than trying to hold people back for certain setups. So yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah, we can definitely discuss this more. Like I said, I think I had planned some stuff for the 2310 release, but it's going to be next year at the earliest. We have a lot more work to do before we mess up some of these defaults, and we need more functional components in place. Cool. Sure. I think we only have 3 minutes left. I wanted to bring this proposal back up. There was unanimous support for Besu Enterprise as a channel. Do we still? I personally love that, actually, because people always come into the Besu main channel and they're like, does anyone know anything about Besu for Enterprise? And it sometimes is not, people are not answered enough, or they ignore the channel or whatever. Do we have an idea for what we would want the public networks channel to be called? Because we can't have Besu and Besu Enterprise. I think we'd need something like Besu Mainnet, or I don't know, something similar. Because Besu Public Networks is a weird, unwieldy name, and Besu Public is not a good name for a Discord channel because it implies something different. Any ideas? Any comments?
Personally, I'm trying to remember what I said on Discord. I suspect I might say the opposite to what I thought on Discord. I'm just going back up through Discord to see what I did say.
We didn't have a vote for that on Discord.
Yeah, I mean the proposal doesn't give a name other than Besu Public and Besu Private.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I suggested Besu and Besu permissioned. I sort of totally understood the point about, well, if you sort of want, if you're going to have permissioned or enterprise, it makes sense to have Besu Public or something for the main channel. But I could certainly see that causing confusion, given that it's already there as a sort of a main channel for general discussion.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel necessarily that there was a need to sort of mirror what is in the docs, which is sort of public and private as two separate sections. It felt like most stuff was still going to go into Besu, whether you call it Besu or Besu Public. And permission just maybe gave, or enterprise or whatever, gave an opportunity to squirrel away some of those conversations off of the main channel.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't think we should be worried about like aping chat from one place to another, because we can always just like tap. But I would be worried about, like, for example, writing Besu Public Network. You can run a permission chain that is publicly available. You can run a side chain that is publicly available. you can run a private network that sits on Google Cloud somewhere and is open to the whole world to interact with. And people do this. So I would be hesitant to say Besu public network versus Besu private network. But I like enterprise because enterprises would in theory be the ones running those side chains or running their own kind of virtual networks in Kaleido's stack somewhere. Whereas everyone else is really thinking about how do I do mainnet related research or run a validator, basically. And I think those two can be sit in the same channel. So Besu Ethereum is confusing. I don't know. I'm spitballing. Maybe we need more time to think this through, but that's the distinction. I really like the enterprise one because Besu private network and Besu public, I think will just confuse users more because they're like, we've seen people in Discord saying like, I'm trying to spin up a public blockchain using Besu with like free gas or whatever, or tokenization or whatever, right? So I think that distinction would be kind of confusing.
Yeah, I totally see that argument. Yeah, I mean, I think enterprise is fine. I think my vote has shifted a bit to Besu and Besu Enterprise, for what it's worth.
I think that's not a bad idea either. Gary, you came up.
I think enterprise, it's probably in line with what we're talking about with distributions also. So it might be just to, dovetail nicely with the strategy for distributions.
So we're settling on Besu and Besu Enterprise. So basically a new channel called Besu Enterprise.
I think that works for me. Yeah.
I was gonna say, you're the one who's trying, you guys are the ones more interested in capturing the feedback, the support from those users. So if you're into it, I'm into it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I think it works for me. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to drop for another call. So thank you for all the discussion. It's been really good. Thanks.
I also shared a bot. I'm not sure if you want to use it, but the bot can help to redirect user or something like that if the bot detects some specific keyword like private or QBFT or something like that. You can just stop the message and display a message, private message to say to the user, maybe could you push your message in the specific channel or something like that.
This is the auto mod.
Yeah, I think we can do that with this plugin. So maybe like that we will educate the user, and I saw that you can log some specific message. We can display specific message when the bot detects something. So I don't know if it can work, but maybe it can help.
I will just take notes here. So we're landing on 2 channels. The existing pound Besu and pound Besu Enterprise could use auto mod in the pound Besu channel to look for words like enterprise, permissioned, private, QBFT, IBFT, etc., and directs them to pound Besu Enterprise. This seems like a good plan. Let me take a moment to note what we did in this thing. Landed onto recommendations. Cool. All right, well, we're well over time. We can discuss this debug improvement thing next time.
Just so it doesn't fall off the chat there, did we capture Renata's ask to get onto the next agenda call about integrating Besu with Indy?
Oh yeah, for sure. She
okay, next time we will have to do that, absolutely. I'm also meeting with indie folks tomorrow,
Okay,
Or-
cool.
but I will already make an agenda for the next call and
It wasn't
Damn.
clear whether APAC or EMEA was what Renato was looking for, but
I'll send her an email or them. I'll send them an email to follow up.
cool, thanks.
Cool. Cool. I'll see you all later. I'm just gonna write this email down before I forget it.
Thanks for driving. See you later.
Bye.
Hi.
Bye.
Bye.